So, Flint, the Flint water crisis. Part of the tough thing for me in not reporting or not being in the field the last few months, obviously it sucks when you lose your job. Obviously it sucks when very vile things are said about you on the internet, which are not true. A lot of things sucked about the last few months. I'm feeling great now, but the biggest thing that sucked is stories that I really care about, and I feel like I was starting to get some movement on in terms of actually creating change, have fallen through the cracks. There's certainly no corporate media covering Flint, and frankly, there's no independent media covering Flint either. And to me, I've always said this, Flint is not just about Flint, Michigan. Flint is about all of us. Flint is the example of when the controlled demolition of the middle class allows for privatization run amok to poison people. That's what happened in Flint. So let me read. By the way, the water is not safe. The water is not normal there. So anyone who tells you, oh, it's under the, quote, allowable limit for 2 consecutive... No. And I'm working on a report right now that I've been working on for quite some time that outlines that is not true. The water is not completely up to standard in Flint. Let me read you a story. So, right now, a lot of the state officials that are being charged criminally are on trial. So I'm going to read you, this is from yesterday. The city's former water utilities administrator said Friday the water system generated a huge number of resident complaints about odor and color 2 months after the city's April 2014 switch to river water. Michael Glasgow testified for the second day in 67th District Court that the Flint water treatment plant did not have the ability to use phosphate coating to keep the pipes from rushing and the water clean. Keep the pipes from rusting and the water clean. His testimony was peppered with complicated terminology about the lack of corrosion controls and how Michigan Department of Quality officials didn't help stop the plant from running when clear warning signs were present. A task force appointed by Michigan Governor Rick Snyder found in 2016 that the lack of use of corrosion control chemicals in the corrosive river water resulted in lead leaching in Flint's drinking water. There was no chlorine in the water system, which was a serious concern, Glasgow said during the preliminary exam. There should always be a significant level of chlorine in the water. The complaints about the water quality a few months after the water switch came into the plants itself. Officials there kept track of complaints over the years in 3-inch thick binders. Quote, what would happen when a citizen complained of water quality of this like? Asked Special Prosecutor Todd Flood. Quote, most of the time, we would end up making a visit to the residents if they would allow, Glasgow said. A lot of times, we do some testing right there from their taps, mainly chlorine testing, disinfectant, residual, and bacteria sample. Glasgow said there was, quote, a pretty significant difference between those samples and ones prior to the water switch. We always had complaints roughly, a couple complaint calls every month. It was significant in the fact that we had a hard time responding to every single complaint after the water switch. Hold on one second. During Thursday's testimony, Glasgow said he had appealed to state DEQ officials Stephen Bush, Michael Prisby, and Adam Rosenthal that the Flint water treatment plant was not ready to be activated in April 2014, meaning they were switching from Detroit's water system to Flint's river in 2014, and the MDEQ was rushing the city of Flint to have its water plant, which for many, many years was the backup plant, not the primary plant that treated the water, to the Detroit water system. So basically Detroit and its officials, water officials, handled Flint's water for almost 50 years. Then they switched in a privatization scheme gone crazy and gone tragedy. And the state was rushing the city of Flint to have its water plant, which was substandard. And from what this guy's saying, they told the state, we are not ready. We are not up to standard. We don't have the resources to treat the water. During Thursday's testimony, Glasgow said he had appealed to state DEQ officials Stephen Bush, Michael Prisby, and Adam Rosenthal that the Flint water treatment plant was not ready to be activated in April 2014. He said Friday that he couldn't remember if any DEQ official came to Flint to inspect the water plant before it was turned on. Bush and Prisby are the subjects of the preliminary exam, along with Patrick Cook. First of all, If that was Ann Arbor or Grand Rapids or any white, predominantly white or middle class white area, and they were telling MDEQ, we're not ready, trust me. Or you need to come down here and look at our water plant, trust me, they'd be down lickety-split. But because Flint is, by rough estimates, 42 to 45% poverty. Last time I checked, Flint was 56% African American. Definitely a lot of poor white people as well. They just rushed it and played God with people's lives. We don't need to send people down there to the plant. We don't need to ensure that the plant is actually ready to treat the water. We don't need to use anti-corrosive controls that are normally put into the water to make sure that the water does not cause lead in the pipes to leach off. We don't need to do any of that for these poor people. And another thing I want to say, because it's unbelievable to me, in this country, there is more media attention on Trump, who at this point there is no evidence that he criminally colluded with the Russian government to hack emails. I said that in the beginning. There's no hard evidence. But there is evidence that Governor Rick Snyder of Michigan lied in front of Congress and perjured himself on the first time he knew about the Legionnaires' outbreak in Flint. He lied. There is evidence that he knew well before he said he knew about the complaints in Flint. There is no investigation into Governor Rick Snyder. And we are supposed to just believe that all his officials at the state environmental agency that report to the governor, it's a state agency, that he just didn't know what they were doing or not doing. He didn't know. So in this country, and by the way, there are people from Flint watching, how do you still feel about paying for his criminal defense fund, which at this point, between Snyder and his state officials that the taxpayers are paying for their lawyers, is now over $12 million of taxpayer money to pay their legal fees? How do you feel about that, Flint? Does anyone truly believe that the governor... First of all, if the governor didn't know, that's criminal too. That's criminal negligence. You're the chief executive of a state, and you don't know that a major water switch for a city of over 100,000 people is about to happen with substandard water technology at the plant? You don't know about all the complaints coming in about odorized water and brown water? You don't know about this? You don't take action for a year? I don't care if he knew or didn't know. I think he did know. It's criminal negligence. But in this country, if you're a plutocrat with a lot of mega donors, and you give those donors tax cuts, and you give those donors deregulation, the legal system protects you. The legal system protects you. As I slowly return to journalism, I will continue reporting on Flint. I will continue reporting on as many water contamination stories that I can, because it's not just about water poisoning. It's also about the corruption that's going on that leads to that. Because there's also cover-ups happening after the fact. And there's also we find out all these water utilities, all these state officials, they knew stuff and didn't do a damn thing. And they hid stuff from the people. We're rightly up in arms over the gun epidemic that's killing our children and our adult citizens, killing our children at schools, killing our adult children. Well, why aren't we as up in arms about our kids and adults being at great risk to drinking poisoned water? You can't live for more than a few days without water, folks, and you get sick when you drink lead-infused water or water that's contaminated in other ways. Lastly, to remind you, Chapter 4 of my book, Corporate Con Job, will be out only for Patreon subscribers. I'll be releasing it for everybody at a later date, but I'm going to start. I've written 10 new chapters. I'll be releasing them first for my Patreon subscribers. Please sign up. And also, I want to get my Patreon up. Right now it's at 250, I believe, because that will be the testing ground for my future company. So if I could see that people are willing to pay for real journalism, $5 a month, $10 a month, $15 a month, it might mean one less latte at Starbucks. It might mean one less night out a month. But if you're willing to pay the money to get real journalism and the truth, then I am willing, and the journalist that I bring with me, which I'm currently working on that, I am willing to put myself out there. And by the way, if you subscribe today, you will join other patrons who are $5 or higher level on a phone call with me tomorrow night. We're going to have a special call with me tomorrow night. Can't talk about everything that's happened, but I will be happy to answer the questions I can answer. And we're going to have a special call tomorrow night for Patreon patrons who have subscribed at the $5 or higher level. You will be getting an invite. I don't know technology. Jen will send it to you. You'll be getting an invite if you're a $5 or higher Patreon subscriber. I want to read you an excerpt from this chapter to get you excited, possibly get you interested in subscribing. To be clear, there's no proof that Clinton's campaign presided over some sinister plot to purge voters off the rolls and cause insanely long lines. No matter how much people would like that to be so, I must stay a citizen of fact-based journalism. But, let's face it, it's certainly not out of the realm of the possibility that the Clintons were behind a Machiavellian Game of Thrones-esque plot to stomp out a wild-haired, scruffy socialist in the quest for Hillary's throne. But that doesn't mean the purging of hundreds of thousands of voters between Arizona and New York and other places was just some random coinkydink that Bernie bros and gals should have gotten over. And frankly, Bernie Sanders made a mistake not making louder cries against what happened in both states. Millions of his voters were disenfranchised from voting for him, but he issued statements after both primaries announcing his displeasure at the voter suppression, and then pretty much moved on. I recall speaking with someone fairly high up in his campaign right after the New York primary purge, when lawsuits were being filed and Sanders supporters were still trying to get a total revote granted. This person had known Sanders and his family for years and was fairly clued into his Bernie's thinking. Quote, "He doesn't want to allow the media to paint him as some type of sore loser," the source told me at the time. The source also told me that Sanders' staff was already bare-boned compared to the Clinton machine, and he simply didn't have the resources to raise a ruckus over the voter suppression and election fraud victimizing his supporters. Part of this made sense to me at the time, but the majority of it I thought was a miscalculation by the Sanders campaign. His entire campaign was built around the truth of a rigged system built by powerful elites to squash the worker bees and keep the money and champagne flowing. That premise, accompanied by hundreds of thousands of voters who could have potentially voted for him being disenfranchised, would have galvanized an even greater populist uprising around his campaign as new primaries and causes took place. Also, the only way corporate media outlets were going to cover potential Bernie voters being disenfranchised and Clinton campaign essentially offering crickets in response was if Bernie himself howled at the moon over it. But alas, like so many other times during the campaign, Sanders chose not to take the gloves off, and we all know how it played out. That's just part of Chapter 4 on the unprecedented election fraud, voter suppression, and rigging. Chapter 5, if your PTSD is gone yet, is all about behind the scenes dropping the curtain of the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. I was there. I saw a lot of things that you probably did not see. I know a lot of things that you probably do not know. Chapter 6 and 7, I did 2 chapters on Standing Rock. Chapter 8 was on election night in New York, where I had the pleasure or the displeasure of interviewing traumatized Hillary Clinton supporters. You got to read that. Chapter 9 and 10 are on Flint. Chapter 11 and 12 are on East Chicago. And Chapter 13, which I'm almost done with, is about the Disappearing Middle Class tour that I took in 2016. I will be writing other chapters also. I cannot implore you enough. I'm not going to beg. And I'm not asking for donations. We don't use that word. I'm asking for your subscription, for your hard-earned, limited dollars to keep me independent. I'm asking for you to be the media that you want to see in the world. What do they say? Be the change you want to see in the world? Listen, there are some outlets that you could pay whatever they charge, $10 a month or what have, to listen to people bloviate about Russia and Trump's tweets. And if you want to spend your money on that, God bless you. I'm not going to tell you not to. There are some outlets that you could spend your money to hear them, talk about their whatever bullshit they do on their free time. That's fine. I'm asking you, if you really, really not only want, but feel we need, as a society, real journalism that's people-powered, a media revolution, subscribe to my book Patreon, because the bigger that gets, then that is going to help me in my next steps, which will be a company, which is what I'm getting to now. I talked about this in depth in a video. Oh, there goes the phone again. I got to get my tripod. I left it in the city. Hold on one sec. I talked about it last night in a video. You could go watch that, where I addressed some of the things over the last few months. We are currently behind the scenes, Jen and I, a couple other people, working to launch a for-profit media company. It's going to be doubling and tripling down on all the things I'm talking about. In the field reporting, independent, and people-powered. Some of you have asked me about Truth Against the Machine. To put it simply, well, you wouldn't love me if it wasn't kind of gangster style. Hold on. There we go. To put it simply, I've ended Truth Against the Machine. Truth Against the Machine was something that unfortunately I wasn't able to be super involved with. I wish I was more involved with it. I think it was amazing for what it was. I think it was amazing in terms of we broke several big stories with pretty much no money or resources. But Truth Against the Machine was kind of like an on-ramp. I always viewed it as an on-ramp that I was never going to be involved with Truth Against the Machine full time. And I ended it because I really want to create something much bigger. You will know what that means when I release it and when we launch. But I don't. I want to release something that's really a media revolution. And I think I felt I had to end Truth Against the Machine to do so. So all the donors that donated, I can't thank you enough. We ended those donations, so you're not going to be being charged anymore for that. The people that were involved, there was some people that were involved that aren't fans of me, but for those that I still talk to, can't thank you enough. And I'm super excited about the next steps, because let me tell you what I view as the next steps. I have seen it out in the country, and I've seen it even more since I haven't been out in the country. There's not only a demand, there is a starvation for real journalism, and people will pay for it. I do not want to be dependent on Facebook traffic. I do not want to be dependent on YouTube, which is now demonetizing independent media that don't tote the establishment line. Jimmy's been demonetized. Kyle has been demonetized. I know other people that have been demonetized. Facebook is changing its algorithm, so when I go live or I post, you can't see it. So definitely turn on your notifications. Our company will be subscriber-based. For the bulk of it, you will have to pay. But I view that, honestly, kind of like Bernie's movement. I mean, we're not a bunch of Bernie bros masquerading as journalists, but just like the politics you want to see, that you help me power the media that you want to see. Help the people that are going to join me, because it will not only be me. I'm only one person. I can't be everywhere, and I think we need to create an army of true independent reporters that are in the field. Not only just standing there like stenographers, but passionately advocating. Because I'm an advocacy journalist. I'm not a neutral bot. So as we finish the business plan, as we go to investors, which we will be doing, as we trademark a company name, which we're currently trying to do, as we build up the infrastructure for that company, it's not going to happen overnight. I'm also getting back surgery next week, which I just talked about in my video yesterday. But it will happen sooner than you think. And I cannot wait. And I'm very pleased that finally I will be doing it totally my way. And I will be doing it through my vision. And it will be in my hands as opposed to others' hands, whether this succeeds or fails. I really hope you'll stand with me. I hope you will stand with the reporters that I bring on. I hope you will subscribe once we create the subscription model for that. I hope you will subscribe right now to my book. Not only does it help us get a measurement of what the business model can be for the for-profit company down the line, it also helps me stay fed and stay clothed. I'm also going to have a $2,500 bill for this surgery, which kind of sucks. Woe is me. We all have our issues, but obviously I'm currently not employed. So your subscription definitely makes a big difference. I will be going live more next week, and I will be going live after my surgery. Again, subscribe to the YouTube. It's in the headline. The link to subscribe to my YouTube page is there. Subscribe to the Patreon. If you subscribe at $5 or higher by tomorrow afternoon, you will be invited to join a call with me tomorrow night. As I said in my video last night, I'm not getting into the TYT business, both for legal reasons and I'm ready to move forward. But I will talk about whatever else you want. And I'm ready to rock and roll, baby. I hope you enjoyed this report. I hope you enjoyed finding out about these stories that you probably haven't known about in a couple months. And I hope you'll join me and support me. Share this video, put on your Facebook notifications for my public page. By the way, if you're not, don't look at my personal page. I'm posting on and live streaming on my public fan page. That's facebook.com/Jordan Chariton. Thank you for watching. Peace.